you are going to have this document with you, okay? After this lecture. Yes, I'll send it to your page. Yes, but I need to explain quickly because we have to cover some grounds. You know, we just have 1 hour. So, budgeting now, we're talking about is definition. Budgeting is the process of preparing, compiling, and monitoring financial plans. So don't bother yourself. You're going to have 8 with you. I'm going to share the slides with you, okay, in the course of the week. So it is a key management tool for planning and control. A budget is derived from the long-term strategic plans of an organization. What we mean by that is every organization has its own strategic plan for it to be in perpetual existence or for being in existence for as long as possible if everything is working out fine. The long-term strategic plan is on its own derived from the established corporate objective of that enterprise. According to the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, a budget is a plan quantified in monetary terms, prepared and approved prior to a defined period of time, containing income to be generated and expenditure to be incurred. That's the basic tool and definition. A budget is prepared before the coming into being of that particular period. Yes, even in the public sector, the same thing happens. For the year 2027 that is coming, the budget process is on now, is on. So, and it will be concluded before December, because by January, the budget will be implemented. You know, the president will have signed it. That's public sector. The private sector, the same thing. In those companies you are seeing, everybody has to plan for the budget coming up from January next year too, because the time frame is the same for both public sector and private sector. Now, let's make a progress. So when a plan is expressed quantitatively, that is in numbers, and what we mean by that, expressed in monetary terms and quantities, it is known as a budget. Whatever plan you have that you cannot measure in terms of numbers, yes, that is monetary values and quantities, is not a budget. So a budget has to have those variables, monetary values and the quantities you are looking at. Now, so that is budget. And the process of converting plans into budgets is known as budgeting. You know, we say we are going to be talking to ourselves on budgeting and budgetary controls. So in these, our notes, we are concerned primarily with budgets shown in monetary terms, that is financial budgets. Going further, we say that a budget is like a lane on a motorway. You may enjoy being able to switch lanes, and at times you may need to do so, but if you want to reach your destination quickly, you need to spend as much of your journey as possible in the lane that is most appropriate for the time you have available. You know, if you are going to a destination, you program yourself. If you use Google Map, it helps you to tell you how you move, yes, the routes to take, and it will lead you there at the end of the day. So even if you are not using Google Map, you are just driving on your own, but you must be conversant with the route and the road. Otherwise, you will miss your way and you get to destination as planned. So the budgeting process may be very formal, as it typically is in most large organizations. We just talked about public sector now, and we're talking about private sector environment as well. So you have to, yes, sometimes it may be so formal a process that committees are set up. We call them budget committees, and we'll pick people from everywhere, from the production department, from human resources, from marketing, from all the various components of the organization, so that everybody will have an input in what we are doing. We don't want to do something without the input. Yes, the late MK Abiola, that politician, he was always funny and saying that you cannot shave somebody's head in his absence. Why do you want to shave my head when I'm not there? So, so if you are part of the organization, you must be part of the decision making. And yes, that's part of the things we are learning. That's part of the things we are learning. Now, let's move on. Let's make some progress. Now, I want to talk about some peculiarities of budget and people. We're talking about budgeting and budgeting control. Abi? Shay, are we on the same page? Talk now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so good. I like you to I like you to respond, and then so that I'll be rest assured that I'm not just wasting my saliva. All right. So yeah, good. Let's move. So there is a peculiar relationship between budgets and people. So in no other part of accounting is there a greater need for understanding people than in the process of budgeting. Budgets are prepared in order to try to guide the organization towards its objectives. I've mentioned that before now, right? Yet, there is no doubt that some budgets are even more harmful to the organization if not properly drawn up. So the main cause of such mismatch between the budget and the organization is a failure to consider human side of budgeting. There's human side, the way people feel. Yes, that's why I mentioned before that in some organizations like banking world, you give targets to everybody. At times, the targets will be so high that the participants may not be able to achieve. Maybe you have set it so high, so you will be said to have not put the human face to it. So budgets and people, that's what we're driving at now. Yes. So now there are some scenarios I've painted here, which I'm going to share with you. So what does this statement mean? Budget and people. Yes. So I'm going to dwell on some of the issues. Now, budgets are drawn up for control purposes. That's basic understanding that I've just put across to you. Budgets are drawn up for control purposes.
Sir, your network is breaking. We can barely hear you. Your network is breaking.
Network is breaking?
It's from your side. It's from your side. Network is okay. Continue, sir.
Okay, so let's move on. We don't have all the time in the world. So we're always having issues with network in on so many occasions. So we have to make do. We have to make do with what we have. Okay. So let's move on. Now, I'm painting some pictures here, some scenarios that we have to bring onto the table when it comes to budget and people. Yes, budgets are drawn up for control purposes. I've just said that. That is, they represent an attempt to control the direction in which the organization is moving. Many people, however, look upon budget not as a guide, but as a straitjacket. You know, straitjacket. There's no flexibility. There's no other way to look at it. Let's look at a few undesirable actions that can result from people regarding budget as a straitjacket rather than as a guide. Number one, a sales manager refuses to let a salesman go to Sweden. Sweden, that's in Europe, right? In response to an urgent and unexpected request from a Swedish firm. So the reason, the overseas sales expenses budget has already been spent. So, and the salesman feels that if he goes there, he's going to have a lot of things to bring into that company. So we have said that the principal limiting factor now is that the budget for traveling and all that has been spent. So there's no money. So the result now, the most profitable order that the company will have received for many years is lost to a competitor, because if you don't do, the competitors are there to pick it up, and they will be singing hallelujah that somebody has failed to do what he or she needed to do. So that's a scenario one. Scenario two, the factory manager turns down requests for overtime work on a job. We have job costing, all right? If you take a job now, maybe that will require the workers to spend additional time to be able to achieve that job, the completion of the job. So that's scenario two. That's what he's painting. That the factory manager turns down requests for overtime. So he doesn't want to pay overtime because he's responsible for expenses on overtime. So because the budgeted overtime has already been exceeded, so he needs to take a paper to management to approve extra budgeted overtime, and all that. So the result now, if he's not able to achieve that, the result is that the job is not completed on time, and the company has to pay a large sum under a penalty clause in the contract. Contracts have some clauses, yes, that guides the two parties. If you fail to do this, you'll be liable to do that. So in this particular scenario, yes, the company may be dragged to the court of law to pay some heavy fines. Yes, so that's scenario number two. Now, scenario number three, towards the end of an accounting period, a manager realizes that she has not spent all of her budget for a particular item. They do it a lot in the public sector. We still have money in this budget and all that. So people, send people on courses. You just go on any course, whether it's meaningful or not, whether it's sensible or not, just send them to exhaust that budget that is still unspent. So the woman who is the head of the place saw that they see a lot of money, so she's worried, and that failing to do so, because it will have a repercussion next year, that we gave you a budget of 20 million, you only ended up spending maybe 9 million out of 20. So next year, if you are budgeting, they will say, last year we gave you 20 million, you only spent 8 million. So don't ask for anything that is in excess of what you actually spent, which is 9 million. as against 20 million that you ought to have budgeted for. So it's going to limit your scope next year. Yes, that poor performance of yours will limit your scope. So you won't be able to ask for a better figure. So she's worried. And failing to do so will result in a cut in her budget for the next accounting period. As a result, she launches on a spending spree. Spending spree, just spending money anyhow. Buying many completely unnecessary items. The result, a lot of unusable and unnecessary equipment are bought for the organization. I think I see have another scenario. Yeah, so the staff training budget has been spent early in the year. As a result, human resources manager will not let anyone go on courses for the rest of the year. As a result, the human resources starts to fall behind in a fast-changing industry. Yes, let me quickly dwell on this. We work with technology. That's why we talk about obsolescence. Even with the machinery that we are using, if there are new models, in the market, you are supposed to adjust yourself to move on to the new technology. So technology drives a lot of things because even the customers, the end users of your product at the end of the day, when they see that that you are behind technology-wise, you are going to be losing so many customers. Yeah, so you need to be sure that you are up to date. Your equipment are not obsolete. That's why we have obsolescence as a cost. When the machines are obsolete, you have to make do to change them, bring in new technology. Otherwise, you'll be working behind other peers in your group or in your industry. So as a result, the human resource starts to fall behind in the fast-changing industry. Mark that word, fast-changing industry, which is highly dependent on advanced technology. Yes, I've just mentioned that now. And the better ones start to look for jobs in other companies, which are more, some of the staff. Yes, they say, no, we can't be here. Our colleagues are working in better organizations, which had upgraded their technology and their working tools so that they do things better, and the customers, who are the end users of our product, are responsive. Yes, if they see that you are not having the technology that will help you do better, produce cutting-edge products that will be enjoyed by everybody, then you are undoing yourself. So then these are some of the relationship between budget and human beings. So then we're going to go to another thing now. Yes, what we just exhausted is budget and people. Whatever things you are doing, you should know that people are there. You are dealing with people. You are dealing with human beings, and you must be conscious of what you are doing so that you continue to be in perpetual operation. Yes, you are operating as a going concern, Abi. Everybody knows that going concern, that nobody is seeing that you are going to close your business in the foreseeable future, because you need and that's you have to do the needful to be sure that you are doing it right. Now we are going to go to budget, planning, and control. Budget and people is what we just discussed. So we're going to go to budget, planning, and control. So the methodology of budgetary control is probably accounting's major contribution to the process of management. Before we get down to the actual mechanics of preparing a budget, we will first look briefly at the main steps involved in drafting a budget. So when budgets are being prepared, two principal objectives must be uppermost in the mind of top management. Budget exists in order to implement. You're not just doing it for doing sake. Yes, you want to implement it. So if there are some obstacles that will not allow you to implement, then it's better for you not to go into it at all. So one of those is planning. We said at the beginning that he who fails to plan plans to fail. So whatever we are doing, we must be forward looking. We must look at there's a book, the end from the beginning. That is, you have a focus where you are going. That's the title of that book. Yes. So you be focusing, like sprinters. I work in Yabatech for now, and coincidentally, I'm the MD of Yabatech Ventures. So we have our fields, under our control here. So some Athletic Federation of Nigeria came to have an event and all that. So you see people, athletes going to their own areas of specializations. Even Funke Amushan, what's her name now? Is it Funke? Amushan, the last year she did the qualifying whatever here in Yabatech. So, but where I'm going is, you see the athletes, they will line up and they are focused. They are looking at where they are going to end, the finishing lines. So they are focused there. I want to get there before any other person. I want to be the fastest person to get there. So they are looking at it ahead, and then, once they ask them to start, everybody starts at the same time, and then the fastest person will get there first. So planning, this means a properly coordinated and comprehensive plan for the whole business. So each part must interlock with other parts, yes, because nobody is on his own. Everybody works together to get the desired result for the organization. So then control. Just because the plan is set down on paper does not guarantee that the plan will be followed automatically and that there will be no deviations or variances. You are business students. Yes, this is a business admin class. So you should expect variances or deviations once in a while, but you ensure that if there are deviations, they are not too marked. They are not so different from your target. So control is needed to ensure a plan is followed and control is exercised via the budget. Thus, the term budgetary control, you have to control it. To achieve real control, the responsibility of managers and budgets must be so linked that manager responsible for a certain part of the plan is given a guide to help him or her produce the desired result, and also that the actual results achieved are then compared against the expected results. I've just mentioned that before. That is actual compared with the budgets. Then if there are variances, you establish them. Yes, and then governor, class rep, and the assistant, make sure you are taking recording. You're having recording of this presentation, okay? So it's important. So you should record our presentations. Then preparation of estimates and the sales budget. This is one of the main budgets that we look at, because we're comparing estimates and the sales budget. Sales budget, if you don't have marketable products that we can sell out there, so why are we in business? So yes, and all these people, all these organizations doing very well, like the Dangote group. Dangote has so many products now. They have cement, they have sugar, they have so they are into petroleum products now, diesel, and all that and all that. So people are preferring their product to others for some reasons. And as the leader in that particular industry, you must be sure that you continue to be relevant. You continue to be relevant. Relevance is key. Otherwise, you will see that a lot of people will drop your products and then look for alternative products somewhere. I know that for a businessman, he won't allow that to happen. He won't pray for that to happen. That's why when I was in the Adenuga group, Dr. Mike Adenuga group, yes. Anytime there is a time, anytime there's a need to employ new workers, yes. As a policy, we choose the best workers, and he will say, yes, I don't mind to pay you anything, but make sure you fulfill your obligation towards this company. Any of the companies, we now have Glow. We used to have Equatorial Trust Bank, and we used to have about 4, 5, 6 organizations like that. Everybody individually, yes. When you go up for the final interviews and all that, questions will be asked. How can you make sure that this organization, by the time you are leaving us for anything, it's that you are going to leave it better than how you have met it and all that. So he wants to extract a commitment from you. So that's why at the end of the interview process, yes, you are going to meet him as the chairman of the group, and then you make your commitment. And if you show, then once you are able to achieve that, let me even tell you, when I was in the bank, there was time I was the head of finance and planning, and when we do all our budgeting processes like this and all that, and then we come to the end of the year, yes, our financials are taking, it used to be my assignment. Yes, our results, our financials are taken to central bank, and once we get the approval, yes, the shareholders will get their own return on their investment and all that. Then at the end of the day, too, we that are workers, yes, we will be compensated too, yes, productivity bonus. And I remember it used to be my lot that time. We prepare it, and once it's concluded, we just throw figures to everybody's accounts. They'll be surprised. What's this one? We tell them it's productivity bonus, because the organization wants it to do better next year than what you have done this year. So they are first and foremost appreciating you for what you have done that has led to this profit that we have generated this year. But please, you can still do better. So this one is just a token to to show you that we appreciate your effort, but we want you to do better. Like an athlete mentioned, once they when they finish, they record the time taking for them to complete maybe 100 meters, 200 meters, and all that. But the next event, they want to do better than that. They want to get there earlier than this time. So, and they will record, they will mention the profile that he or she did it in 10 minutes, 10 seconds or whatever, but you want to cut it short. The time taken now should be lower than that, that's when you will be seen to be performing. So preparation of estimates and the sales budget. So sales budget, I told you, sales, it's very, very crucial. That's why it's one of the principal budgets we need to work on. Because if there is no sales, we are not making sales, people are not patronizing us, then we don't have any business doing business. We don't have any business being in business. So we have to, so let's make some additional progress because of time frame. Yes. Now, so we have said that sales is very crucial. So everybody, all hands must be on deck to contribute our own quota towards the achievement of the budget. But at the same time, we must be conscious of not giving unrealizable targets to our staff. We don't want to bend their neck. We don't want to break their neck. So give them some flexible targets or figures they can achieve so that they will still be there. Yes. So now, the most difficult estimate when preparing the company's budget is that of sales volume, and then sales revenue. One is a function of the other. Volume, the higher the volume, then we are taking it that the sales price is given. So if you can increase the volume, it means much more revenue will be coming to the organization. Then make a statistical forecast on the basis of the economic conditions relating to the goods sold, and e.g., how demand reacts to price changes. Yes, we are all economists in our own right, Abi. Yes, you need to feel the pulse of your consumers and see how they can react to prices of the goods. If it changes by maybe 20 naira or 30 naira and all that, and your competitor is not changing his own, you will expect that some competitors will take advantage of that, and your product sales figure might drop. So this approach has an external rather than internal focus. When adopted, it tends to perform at a high level of organization with relatively little consultation involving employees actually engaged in the selling process. Now, like I told you, these slides will be shared for this topic that we're handling today, and we will be expecting it in the course of the week. I will conclude it, and I will send it to the class. Now, so sales budget, like I told you, is very, very key. Then the other one that we're going to go into is the production budget. If you don't produce, you can't sell. So production budget must be compatible with the sales budget. Yes, one leads to the other. You have to generate what figures you want to realize from your sales before you go into production. Because you don't want to produce goods that you end up just pushing into your warehouse. Because if there's no demand for them, then they will end up in the warehouse. You are not going to be making sales out of it. However, some other factors are also highly relevant, such as the level of inventory of finished goods. Yes, inventory of finished goods, which will be held by the business. Business is concerned with that because you don't want to, by the time you are tying down finished goods there, you are tying down capital, money that ought to have been realized and kept in your bank for operations and other purposes. It's tied up in your finished goods, which probably you are not getting buyers for. So we're concerned with that. Yes, the level should be as low as possible. You know, there is a philosophy in cost accounting we call that is called what's it called now? So that as soon as you are producing, just in time philosophy. Just in time means you are working towards zero items in stock. Yes, just in time. As you are buying, as you are producing, you are selling. You are selling. You're not keeping anything in your warehouse. So that's the principle behind the just in time costing. Yes, just produce sufficient quantities that will be demanded by your consumers. You know, that's what we mean by that philosophy. If sales are at the same level over the year, production can be two, and inventory figure can remain constant. So I've mentioned what is important, and that's why I brought in just in time. Just in time is working towards you not producing anything that will be stored. Yes, as you are producing, demands are already there. You are pushing them out, Everybody is working. The marketing manager and his team, you know, has orders from everywhere, including up to outside the country. Yes, you know, your distribution network can extend to Ghana, to Togo, to Burkina Faso, and other places around there, because our products are there. I was there. Yes, I was there. You see Nigeria products there. You see Nigeria banks there. Yes, Nigeria banks are there and all that. So you can feel free that you are. It's like you are still in Lagos there. So then you have your distribution channels, your business admin people. Yes, when they engage you, yes, as the head of the marketing team, yes, you are supposed to take a walk, go to all those sub-regions in Africa, and then create channels through which you distribute, you sell your products and all that. So you don't just stay in Lagos there, because once your product is known here, so why don't you go out to find out how you can expand that scope? Yes. So now, production, so we normally have a peculiar budget for production. Yes. So and it's dependent on your sales pattern, what people are willing to buy from you. That's why. So we talked about sales budget, then we now talk about production budget. Because you want to service the sales manager. These are managers. The sales manager is saying that no, I want 25,000 units of this came for next week and all that. The production manager too is challenged to make sure that he doesn't encounter machine downtime that will prevent him from meeting that production target for the period. So that's why we do budgets, production budgets. So by the time we share these slides, you'll see some of the issues there. Then by the time we have a physical class, we'll do some practical workings that will let everybody be at home with what we are talking, so that it won't look as if we are talking Greek or Latin or whatever language the other people are not going to be comfortable with. Now, so even production levels, I told you of just in time. Just in time, you're not producing to keep them in your stock. As you are producing, you have the distribution channels are there to absorb them. But they'll be calling you, yes, from Ghana, from, like I told you, from Togo, from Burkina Faso, and all that. You have a manager there, and he's ringing you every moment that we have exhausted our stock, and we want you to deliver our goods by tomorrow or later today and all that. So the process continues and continues like that. Then now we'll go to the corporate objectives. We have mentioned that of the organization. There are many of them. Yes. That's the beginning. We say we want to look at the objective of the business and all that. And one, we have profitability. If you are not profitable, you won't be able to pay your bills. You won't be able to be competitive enough to retain the best hands in the industry. Yes. So then over time, you are going to fizzle out. Let me use third person singular. That organization will fizzle out. I don't want to say you are going to fizzle out. Yes. The market share. I just mentioned Dangote. If you are talking about cement, talking about other products where they are leaders. So they have been leaders. If you go to Nigeria Stock Exchange, look at the industries. Yes, you look at the industries and look at the leaders there. You see them with the statistics given. So if the market share is high, then it means you are a force to be reckoned with, and everybody will like to patronize you and work with you. Yes. So then growth. You don't want to be stagnant in a place. You want to grow. Then the next one, next objective is return on investment. Your shareholders who are putting money on ground for you to continue to do well and expand, they want return on their investment. So is an objective. Then customer satisfaction. Yes, if you are producing things that customers are not happy using, then one is digging his own grave. Yes, so you must do market survey constantly to ensure that your customers are satisfied with the product that is coming out of your factory to them. So then risk, as much as possible, try to limit the risk element in your operations. Then this one is I talk about customer satisfaction. Yes, this on product or service quality. If your product have low quality, you are just there for a small while, for a short while, because the customers will want to go to somewhere else where their hard-earned income will be used to buy more qualitative products that will serve their own interest. Now, we're still talking on the objectives. Now, we have talked about profitability, market share, growth, return on investment, customer satisfaction, risk, then product or service quality. That's the last one I mentioned. Then liquidity. Yes, liquidity. You must be liquid enough to take advantage of opportunities in the market. Yes, you don't. That's why we have our liquidity ratios that we calculate. Yes, so we should be conversant with all that, and we have to make sure that the company is sufficiently liquid to take advantage of opportunities that are available to us in the industry space. Then value added. Continue to add value to your product and all that, so part of the objectives. Then industrial relation. Yes, you should relate with other companies in the same group and all that. The earning per share. Yes, that is related to the investors, because people that trade on the Nigeria Stock Exchange, they calculate these figures every time in order to determine, do I still remain here with my investment, or should I go to another organization to invest my money? That's earning per share. If you have earning per share of maybe 25 naira per share this year, and you are not seeing that chances are there for you to move from 25 naira per share to maybe 40, 45 naira, then you look at other industries that can give you that. Then there's no crime in it. Just take a walk to those other companies so that you can meet your own targets of the earning per share you have set for yourselves. Now, the time is fast running out. However, I want to dwell on some issues that relates to the purpose of budgeting. We have talked about it in passing, but we want to be particular now. Purpose of budgeting. We have talked about compelling, that a budget is going to compel you to achieve the objective of the organization. Yes, to compel planning. So budgeting will compel you to plan. So budget is a plan of what the organization wants to achieve in the near future. Planning itself is the establishment of objectives and formulation of policies and tactics to achieve them. Planning can be long-term strategic plans, term operations. So, secondly,
So we can't hear you again.
the network is okay. You can hear now, right?
Yes,
Yes.
You
sir.
can hear now. Okay. Yeah, what I'm saying is everything I've been talking about are going to be in the slides that we're going to share with your class. Everything and other things, that relates to budgeting and budgetary control will feature there. So on that note, I want to say that we have exhausted our timing for today, but according to Ruth, we may likely have our physical contact next Saturday, by God's grace. But I have a commitment with I have a commitment with year 5 too. So it depends on our arrangements. Yes. So because since you're having me now, it may not be so automatic that next week it will be your class. Then we have accounting and business admin too. I'm sorry, finance. in your year 2. So we have to look at all those parameters and see how we can service everybody. It is said that when there are two equal equities, I'm going to law now, Abi. When there are two equal equities, the first in time prevails, Abi? Yes.
Yes.
So you all have right to us. But if there are other compelling need for us to service other classes, we will jolly well do that. So by my time here, it's 12 o'clock. So, and I think on this note, whatever observations that you have, you can send them through the class to me. But the promise I've given you is that everything I've been saying on budget and budgetary control will be in the slides that I'm going to share with your class next between now and next weekend, by God's grace. Thank you very much for listening, and have a nice weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank
So I'll see you next week, hopefully. Yes, physically. So Onifade should let me know where we are going to meet. Physically, if I come to Unilag, I'd like to know where. All right. Thank you. Bye.